Everyone, I'm Kyle. Um, we have some other mentors here tonight. We have Irene, James, Sahil. And today we'll be going over intro to 3D modeling with Blender. Just a heads up before we get started. This is going to be recorded, but if you turn your camera off and mute yourself, then there's nothing to worry about there. If you do choose to speak or show your face, then just know that by doing so, you consent to having yourself shown. Just to begin, in case you didn't also see, make sure you have Blender installed, blender.org/download. Really quick, free download. All right, 3D modeling with Blender. Don't pay too much attention to the times. I don't know where we have 5 p.m., but we're just going to go over these quick things. So we got introduction, getting started, orientation with Blender environment, basic movement, edit mode, object manipulation. Then we're going to do a quick hands-on activity and exporting to Unity. And then finally, just answer some questions. So just to highlight, because we are doing the hands-on activity, if you have not installed Blender, by the time that, if you haven't, go do that now. By the time that we get to that, you'll have it done. All right, so just a quick getting started. This is the first thing that you see when you open Blender. For now, we'll just do general and new file. And I'll give you a live demo, show you what that looks like. So here are Blender and new file, general. Blender always starts you off with a cube here. And you can delete that, but I think we're gonna play with that a bit. But let's talk a little bit about the layout and what's going on. So we have different windows up here that allow us to switch to different areas, different types of tasks that we might want to use Blender for. So there's layout, modeling, sculpting, and there's texturing and lighting. They're being blocked by my zoom windows right now. Don't worry about all these too much. We're only going to be sticking on layout tonight. Here we have scene collection on this right side here. If you've ever used like layers in Photoshop or Illustrator, it's pretty much the same thing. You can make collections here. You can toggle visibility. Like I'm going to turn the cube off there, turn it back on. Next we have some tools here. There's a lot of little fine things that you can control on these sidebars and go between them. And they change depending on the types of objects that you have selected. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Here we have a playback bar. So if you're doing some animation, you can control keyframes here. And we also have some tools here on the left that allow you to move, rotate, select. These will change depending on the mode that we're in. We'll go over modes later. And one also important thing before we get onto movement is this bar here at the bottom. And this bar, can everyone see that? Thumbs up if everyone can. Hope it's not too small. Yeah. It will show you the controls that you can do based on your certain actions. So here it's telling me if I press the middle mouse button that I have, it lets me move around. And if I just left click something, then it'll select something, but there's nothing there to select. I can select that, but it'll change depending on the keys that I have pressed and the actions that I'm doing. So like if I have the Alt key down, now when I use the mouse click button, it zooms instead. So those are so two important buttons right off the bat that we should get ourselves acquainted with is the Alt key and the Shift key. Alt key and Shift key allow different types of movement and options. So yeah, you can hold them down and see what they do, and you should definitely play around with them whenever you're doing a certain task because they're going to allow all kinds of different stuff depending on what it is. Additionally, a helpful button is the toolbar button. So when you first open Blender, it's going to ask you what button you'd like to bounce the toolbar button. It's usually Shift Tab, Shift, or Space. Mine is bounce space. And it gives you a lot of quick little, options that you can do, maybe for transformation, just general environment, navigation. And so let's start off with here. So let's start out with some movement. So you can rotate, pan, and zoom. We'll be using the navigation gizmo to do so. And before we move on, does anyone have any questions on just the basic orientation? I don't want to get too far into movement. Give me 1 second. All right, great. So let's move on to movement then. So panning, rotating, zoom, using our gizmo. And you can also use the number pad if you have that. It does a lot of little quick actions, but if you don't have a number pad, don't worry about it. I don't have a number pad. No big deal. All right, so let's play with this gizmo. So using this, we can, these are preset viewpoints. So if you click on them, it'll show you for all the view all the way from the top. Or if you click the Y, it'll show you all the way, like if you're looking straight down the Y axis. And look, you can even see this represents our camera. This represents our light source. So you can see how it changed depending on where we click relative. So I like to use the middle click button to pan around. We're upside down right now. One thing that's good to point out is that this is the Y axis, this is the X axis, and this is the Z axis. Like up, down is the Z axis. Y is not up, down. It's an important distinction. I made that mistake my first time too. So you can hold the middle mouse click. You can hold the middle mouse button to just rotate around, and then if you hold Shift and middle mouse click, you can move around there. And if you don't have a mouse, you're using a trackpad. If you go over here to move the view, you just click and drag. Click and drag. And if I want to zoom in, I can either do it here by just click and drag, or I can use my scroll wheel. Pretty easy stuff. This is for toggling the camera view, so you can just see what the camera is looking through at the moment. And this is for perspective. It changes the perspective kind of. It's called an orthogonal view. It's not super important for now, but it's about seeing things with an equal distance. All right, moving on. I'm gonna go over some basic transformation. So moving, rotating, scaling. Yep, Brian Holton has a good point here. If you emulate a 3-button mouse, you can alter that in preferences if you'd like. Before we move on to transformation, does anyone have any movement questions? Everyone following along good? All right, great. So, yep, transformation, you can grab, rotate, scale objects, and I'll show you how to do that using the GRS keys. And I'll also show you how using the X, Y, Z keys allow you to selectively alter things based on a specific axis. So let's use that square that we have as a, well, not a square, a cube. That's a good example. So there's many ways. Let's say I wanted to move this. I could hit spacebar and hit move, or it shows me here, there's the G. So I can also just hit the G on my keyboard straight up, and it lets you move it around this way. Move anywhere you want. Very exciting. Let's say, and one important thing, if you look at the bottom of my screen here, you can see where all those controls are. They're now different because I'm doing a specific action. So there's X. It says X key for the X-axis, Y key for the Y-axis, and it has a lot of them there. So it's always important to keep that in mind, that the bar may change and give you useful little hints. It's great for starting out. So I'm going to hold down the X key, and now when I move my mouse, it's only moving things along the X-axis. When I hold, and so I let go of the X, and now I press the Y key, and it's moving along the Y. Same for the Z. Good stuff. Now let's go over rotate. So again, you can use spacebar rotate. Just hit the R key, and lets you rotate freely. And then we can use, X rotation, Y rotation, and Z rotation. It's great stuff. You can also hold down the Shift key. It will rotate things at a finer, slower rotation. So if you're trying to really set things in there in a specific area and you don't want to be reckless, just hold down that Shift key. All right. Also important, let's say you're moving something and you're like, ooh, all right, that looks good right there. But oh, wait, actually cancel that. Instead of just hitting like instead of excuse me, you can click and realize your mistake, and then hit Control Z and take it back. Or if you're in the middle of that action, you can just right click and it'll instantly go back. So there's no need to confirm anything. So you're moving. I still have it selected. I haven't hit any buttons. I don't like where it is. I hit right click and it's back to where it was. Really cool.
Unity, there's a thing where you like hold down control and you can like rotate by 90-degree intervals. Is there some sort of equivalent over here or no?
Not that I know of, but if there is, I will get back to you.
No worries.
Okay. All right. Next we'll do some. Oh, we got a chat here. Same chat. All right. Yep. Then we have scale. Scale. It shows you how to scale it on different types of ways. So you can scale this way, and the way you do this is you press and hold on the color, and each color represents a different dimension in the plane. So this would scale it up, scale it towards us for now. You can also play around with the white circle. The white circle is just going to generally scale it. Another chat. Or just type in how many degrees. Yes, that's an excellent observation. Over here on my bar, you can also click and drag to move things this way, or you can just type in a manual number. I'll move things. Yeah, let's get things back to the origin for now. And like I said, oh, I got my mistake. We can still use our X, Y's, and Z's to move things on specific axes. Great. Does anyone have any questions on basic movement for now? Give it a second. I know typing's hard.
How do you rotate again?
How do you rotate? Yep, so rotate, you can use the R key.
R key?
R key, and then your X, Y, and Z. Or you can open up your tools, and it's there, rotate. It might be, tools is either going to be space shift or just space, depending on how you set up your environment. You can also toggle that in settings if you prefer space and you forgot to hit it when you opened Blender for the first time. All right, any more questions on movement, scaling, rotation? More. How come when I do X, Y, Z key, it keeps asking me if you want to delete? All right, so X, that's a good question. So X is the delete button. It's the same, like I'm gonna hit X on my keyboard and I'm also gonna hit delete on my keyboard. When you hit X, it's gonna give you a confirmation. Make sure that you have it selected first and make sure that you have already moved it a little bit. So I'll try to run through what you probably did, and then you tell me if I have a close approximation. So let's say you didn't have anything clicked, and then I guess that wouldn't work. Let's say you didn't have anything clicked, and then you hit the X button. It says delete. Oh no, you don't want that. So now you have it selected, and you're like, okay, X key. You don't want that either. But now let's try rotating it first. Now that we're in rotate mode, when we hit the X key, now it doesn't have the delete dialog. So make sure that when you want to use those X, Y, Z keys to move based on axis, that you have chosen what sort of transformation you would like to do first. Does that answer your question? All right, give it a few. If let's see, it only deletes. The X action only applies to the X axis if you're move, rotating, or scaling. Interesting. Have you tried the Y or Z keys? Tried R then X. Let me know how R and Y goes. If it doesn't work, I'll tell you what. For now, just use this bar over here, and we'll troubleshoot things later. Sound good? Oh, great. Okay, looks like it's working out now. Glad we could help with your question. All right. Interesting. Yeah. All right. So just work for the sidebar for now, and I'll help you out later during the group exercise, or one of the mentors can assist you now. Private chats. Next, we're going to go over edit mode. In edit mode, I'll show you the difference. So here we have object mode. This is what we've been in so far. But now we're moving into edit mode. And let's talk about it a little bit. When you edit enter mode, you can also enter it by just clicking on an object and pressing the tab key, or you can do it the way that I did. And it allows you to see the way that an object is constructed. So objects in Blender, they're made of edges, faces, and lines. Vertices, lines, and faces. So a face would be like this here, this space between vertices. So a vertex is one of these points. Between the points is the face, and connecting each vertex to each other is a line, also known as an edge. And edit mode allows us to play around with those and change them in interesting ways. So even here, we were originally in object mode, and I switched this way. We can also just switch by pressing the tab key. You can already see here, we have a vertex here, face here. Looking great. Okay. And yep, there are some also some useful hotkeys here. So there's like face selection mode, edge selection, and vertex selection. I'm gonna keep moving on. Do we have any questions on edit mode before we move on? Going once, going twice. Great. All right, so now we're gonna play with edit mode. It's the best part. Lose object manipulation. So in edit mode, as I said before, we can alter vertices, edges, faces in interesting ways. And one of the most basic ways that we can do this is with extruding, insetting, loop cutting, and beveling. And we can access them with the sidebar, the hotkeys. So I'll show you how to do that now. This is what they look like on the sidebar. So here's our sidebar. There's a lot here. There's like select, move, rotate, scale. Some of that stuff that we already talked about before. If you're having trouble remembering the hotkey or anything like that. But we also have some new ones, like we have extrude region, insert faces, bevel, and loop cut. So we'll be working with this area. And then we also have some like smooth, edge slice, string flatten, and shear. If you play around with those, and I'll give you guys some time to play around with those, you'll see how those work. Our focus for now is going to be this little green area. So moving around, does anyone have any questions so far on getting into edit mode? If you're following along at home, or anything on this toolbar before I start going into specifics? Great. Okay. So edit mode, and let's say we want to extrude the region. So yeah, so we have extrude region. Extrude region, it with a selected face, it allows you to push it up or push it down. But first, before we show extrude, I'll show you guys loop cut. So loop cut allows you to basically divide a face in half. So if you click this, it's going to create 2 new vertices and some new edges all along our figure. And now we can do it again. We can even cut it one more time. And again. So each time, it's kind of like a half-life, cuts it in half. And now we can start using some of our more fun tools. So let's say we want to extrude region. We can select specific face. Now we're there. And when we do extrude, we see a little dialog come up. we can pull it up, and it lets us pull that area up. And let's say that we wanted to do another area over here. See chat. Can also click and drag the loop cut. Good point. Yep. Pull this one up. We can use our shift key. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you can also see that there's controls to help with extrude. There are with a lot of tools, so always keep an eye on that bottom. And now you can see you can start to pull objects together in interesting ways. You could make a set of stairs or a chair. Simple shapes, right? Now let's do some bevels. With bevels, we just click and drag the same way that we did extrude, and it gives it cuts that make a bevel shape. And then let's say we wanted to bring this out, then we select this and extrude, bring it up a little bit, and it's a diamond. Of course, if we wanted to really have a 3D effect, we'd probably also bring this area up with this area. And we also have knife tool. Knife is like an advanced loop cut. It allows you to define where your edges are going to be. So you click on a line, and you're able to select where you'd like the cut to go. Like there, it's fine. Escape cancels it, and enter confirms it. Now we can extrude that area. And so we can extrude areas of custom sizes that we define. Makes for interesting work. Does anyone have any questions on basic edit mode, extrusion, insert faces, beveling, loop cutting, anything like that?
So just to recap, for like to extrude something, you have to click the E and then just pull up.
The E, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question well. Could you please repeat it?
So to extrude something, how exactly? I'm just trying to go over. I think I can't. I'm failing to extrude. To move an object upward.
Right. So extruding, we're editing a object in changing its state. So we already have the object, and if we wanted to move the object freely, right, we could still move the object freely if we selected it and G'd it around.
Yeah.
Edit mode is when we want to change the object itself. We want to change parts of the object. We want to make it look different. And extruding is one of the ways that we do that. So I can even push this in. It's gonna look a little interesting. That's how it looks. Blender is very good at doing what you tell it to do. What you tell it to do may not always look great, but it will try its best to do it. So you have to have a sense of what you want at the end, and you have to tell Blender correctly how you want it done. Does that help with your question a little bit?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have a quick activity. So you've been following along at home. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes just to make anything that you want using loop cut and extrusion. Before that, also, if you want to play with other shapes, I realize it's a little important. Let's say we're not in edit mode. We can do add, and we can do mesh. Mesh is going to be a 3D object like this cube. And let's try cone. It's going to give us cone. So now you could operate on the cone if you wanted to. And you can see that it has a different configuration of edges, faces, and vertices, different than the cube because they're different shapes. We'll delete it for now. And I'll give you guys a few minutes to just play around. In the meantime, if you have any questions on anything that we've gone over so far, or stuck on something, or you see a tool that looks interesting and you want to know more about it, I'll be here.
What's the coolest thing you've made in Blender so far?
A snowman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm by no means a Blender master. I'm learning every day. Although maybe one day I will be. Let's make a chair. One thing that's also helpful, if you shift select, then you can grab multiple things at one time. It's helpful when you want to pull a couple different faces out at once.
And Kyle, you can also you can select faces as well by hitting 3.
Yes, that is correct. All right, got ourselves a nice chair there. And let's throw a monkey on that. Some interesting things here. It's on edit mode. You can also do object tab, transform it here as well. It gives you lots of different options. You can snap things to origin. I won't go over everything in the menu here. Just play around. Look effects, fur. Love this button. Great button. Yeah, let's say we wanted to add another shape onto it. Could throw a monkey. Blender gives us a nice monkey to play with. Look at that guy. Love him. And Z him around. Great. Monkey on a chair. All right.
Could you show again like where you got the monkey head?
Yeah, sure. All right. So if you want to add any type of pre-made shape, just go to Add, Mesh, and we got plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, contours, grid, monkey. If you add something like circle, it's 2D. Just keep that in mind. When I was figuring this out the first time, I remember that I was like, why isn't it 3D? All right, it's a circle. Blender takes things very seriously.
What's like the use of that circle? Like what would you use those 2D shapes for?
So let's say like you had a plane. Move that over. It would be a good like ground if you wanted to maybe do some animation or create a scene. You throw some textures on here, and you have a good starting point. Another
Gotcha.
thing, another strategy that is used for that often is if you do a cube, and you make the cube really big. Now you're inside the cube. It's kind of like a little box where you can have all your stuff going on. And now you've got walls all set up for you. So that's another take on it.
I'll throw something out here really randomly. For those of you interested in virtual reality, if you're working with 2D and 3D shapes in a virtual scene, if you're going inside like a virtual reality scene, 2D things don't actually appear. So if you're making a like label or some like UI or like HUD element in 2D, it doesn't appear, and you have to emulate that into 3D. So like if you wanted to make a 3D label, you'd have to make like a really, really, really thin cube instead of like an actual like square. So I would be curious at how the 2D objects show up in virtual reality. We should test that later.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Considering the way that planes work in Unity, it might be similar. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully.
Jordan, do you have any fun Blender facts to talk about while we have some people working on their own little objects?
Fun Blender facts.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of like advanced things in Blender, I guess. Like this is just a beginner's tutorial on how to like shape things, but eventually you can get to adding materials. You can animate things. You can like rig up like skeletons is what they call it. You can like put like bones into like your meshes and then animate them and do fun things like that. So Blender is like a very powerful tool. You can use it. It's used like it's free, and obviously it's easy to use, but it's also used by professionals in a capacity to make like huge studio things. So I guess that's my fun fact.
Nice.
Maybe we can link Blender Guru, who inspired this tutorial. He has a lot of good tutorials if you want to continue on after this.
That's right. And also, we'll be releasing the slides too that we've been following tonight. And there's also some nice links in there to both tutorials and documentation that can help you get started.
Is there anything weird that happens if we try to like shove the monkey face into the chair, or does it kind of clip and not?
So it doesn't have clipping. We can just put it in. Now it's a monkey in a chair, I guess. If we shift click two objects together, we can do join, and it'll become the same object. That's good if like let's say you're making like an ant and it's, head, thorax, abdomen. You want to make 3 separate shapes and then join them together. Or snowman. Snowman is bottom, middle, top. 3 spheres that you just join together. Make a really quick snowman. So yeah, look how many vertices and faces this guy has compared to that original cube. I just copy pasted there. We can join. Isn't that fun? And then when we edit that,
I know in Unity there's like a easy way to like increase the number of like vertices that like a sphere has, like because obviously there could be infinite.
yep.
We just go and do like the divide method, or is there like a kind of default way we can generate something that has, I don't know, like 100 vertices instead of 50 or whatever it is?
Yeah, so like let's say you wanted to make it more complex. You select it and then through the object menu, subdivide, and it'll double the number of vertices that you have.
Sick. Cool. Thanks, man.
Yep. And there's a lot more you can play with here in edit. So you can like snap the vertices, you can mirror the vertices. You can have them all like come at to one point. You can randomize. Isn't that a pretty thing? I love it. That won't change the visible resolution though. It'll just split it flat faces into 4. Yeah, good point. Thank you, Brian. All right. Give you guys some time to finish up your objects. Seems a lot easier than Unity. I agree. Yeah. And yeah, Brian says if you want to change the res in terms of visibility, you do that when the sphere menu pops up in your bottom left. Great. All right. Thank you, Jordan. Showing off his flexing his Blender skills. All right. That's enough time for individual practice. Unless anyone is like, no, wait, Kyle, please. Otherwise, we'll keep moving on. So back to the slides. Great. So let's say we had an object built in Blender and we want to export it to Unity. We'll go over this real quick. We don't really need the slides. So here in our scene collection, first thing we want to do, delete the camera. We want to delete Suzanne too. Goodbye. Also want to delete the light. I think I did that already by mistake, but maybe it wasn't a mistake because we don't need it. So let's save it as something. Just save it as like my demo.blend, and I'll save to my desktop. Great. So now it should all be saved. Probably not show my files. Let's open up Unity. And I'm just going to open a random project. It doesn't matter what kind of project you have. So we'll go for the VR workshop that we did not too long ago. It's opening. Just go to the slides. Make sure to save your object as a .blend file in a directory that you want. We're basically just going to drag it into the assets. Got chats here. Yep, people discussing sculpting techniques, advanced modeling techniques. That's good stuff. You can do sculpting in Blender. It's a lot of fun. All right, so now we're here. This is our recent file that we just made. Just gonna drag it right in. Should appear there at my demo. And now we can just put it in. Look at that. Got the chair right there. You know that stuff that's from the last workshop that we did. And it can move around. You can start applying your grabbable attributes and anything else that you want to do for your VR game. Okay. Here, I also have some helpful links, things that can help you out when you're getting started. So just the Blender docs, some of the hotkeys that'll help you out. And we have the official Blender YouTube channel. Great tutorials there. And then finally, we just leave things open to questions. If there is anything that you're confused on today, or something that just piques your interest at all, I'd love to hear it. We have also the other mentors here. Jordan and Irene will also be able to help. They helped me out setting up this presentation for you guys today. How do you animate? Unfortunately, animating is it's pretty advanced. I think it's a little bit out of the scope of today's workshop, but that's definitely something we can look into for a future workshop. I love animation myself, so yeah, that'd be fun.
In the meantime, there's probably a couple of tutorials that you can look at. Blender is really good at having a lot of documentation. People like making YouTube videos.
Yeah,
and if you like this tutorial, let us know, and we can set up more advanced Blender tutorials where you can go over things like animation and texturing and whatnot.
Yeah,
so please,
exactly.
Yeah, give us feedback.
All right. Do any of the mentors, if you have any closing remarks, please, let's hear them.
Yeah, actually, one last closing remark. Thank you, everybody, for all of the great questions we've had today. And so we will actually have a survey out soon on Discord asking people about workshop topics that you might be interested in. So if you're interested in things like more 3D modeling, learning how to animate, or even if something's not directly related to XR, but you could apply it somehow, we would love to hear it, and we would appreciate if you guys give us feedback on our workshops. So just keep an eye out for that and make sure to fill that out when you get it.
Thank you, Irene. Yeah, guys, go ahead.
And one more thing, as always, thank you guys for showing up. And I'm seeing some familiar faces. So I know before we all talked about leadership opportunities, and I just want to say that if you weren't really sure a couple months ago, or you're starting to now kind of get into this a little bit more, just keep it in the back of your mind that we're always looking to bring new people in, and don't think you've missed any deadlines, and feel free to keep showing up even if you don't. But if you do feel like getting more involved, contact probably Irene and she can help you out there.
Thank you, James. Yeah, guys, thank you for coming out tonight. I hope you all learned something interesting about Blender, and it sparks a new hobby of yours that lasts your whole life. If you have any questions that you suddenly did not think of until this call ends, feel free to @ me, Jordan, Irene, any of the mentors in Discord. We'll be happy to help you out. Until then, I think that'll be all tonight. So you're all free to go.
Thank you.